January 2008. The Boeing 777 is the gold standard for commercial aviation. For more than 10 years, the plane has logged 2 million flights without a single major accident.
Clear to land.
But less than 1,000 feet above London's Heathrow Airport, all that changed.
Hey, I can't get power on the engines.
What do you mean?
It's not giving me power.
This can't be happening. I thought if I don't do anything, then everybody will die.
Mayday! Mayday! Speedbird! Speedbird!
British Airways Flight 38. A 10.5-hour journey from Beijing to London. Powered by 2 massive Rolls-Royce engines, the Boeing 777 is one of the safest planes in the industry. Flight 38's destination is Heathrow Airport, one of the busiest international airports in the world. Nestled in the southwest corner of London, it's bordered by the A30 motorway. People who live in the nearby neighbourhood of Hounslow are well accustomed to the sound of jets taking off and landing. The autopilot is in control as the crew lines up with runway 27 left. As it nears the ground, the plane is buffeted by some high winds. It's the first wrinkle in an otherwise smooth journey.
It's not me, that's the auto throttles doing their thing. You might want to keep the autopilot on a little longer than usual, to let the wind come down.
Will do.
In turbulent weather, the autopilot can make faster adjustments to keep a plane level than the pilots. 1,200 feet above ground.
I'll have to turn that off for now, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
2 minutes before landing, Coward takes over flying the plane.
You have control?
Just as the 2 pilots had planned.
I have control.
I had a few seconds to spare before clearance to landing, and I was just tidying up my map charts.
Speedbird 38, prepare to land 27 left.
Clear to land 27 left, Speedbird 38. Stable?
Well, sort of.
Suddenly there's a problem.
Hey, I can't get power on the engines. It's not giving me power. What's going on?
What do you mean?
What's going on?
Flight 38 is crippled in the worst way imaginable.
Well, it looks like we have double engine failure.
With neither engine providing enough power, the jet won't make it to the airport. With 152 people on board, Flight 38 is falling toward London with only seconds until it hits the ground.
This can't be happening. This is one of the most modern jets in the world.
In the cabin, there's no indication that anything's gone wrong.
Airspeed low, airspeed low, airspeed
low.
So now I was looking at our impact point. I could see a set of buildings around the Hatton Cross area and a petrol station. I just knew if we were hitting those, then it was certain 100% fatalities. At that point, I felt the weight of my 4 bars on my shoulder. I am the captain. If I don't do anything, then everybody will die. I thought about raising the gear. That's the biggest drag on a commercial jet. But I needed the gear to crash on. We were going to impact, and that was going to take the brunt of the impact, so I had to leave the gear down.
With a crash imminent, Burkill has only one move left, but it comes with enormous risk.
I knew I had about 15 seconds to make a huge decision. I needed to get past those buildings. It was obvious to me that I needed to raise the flaps.
Retracting the flaps will reduce drag but also lift. The plane will fly further but drop faster. Burkill must determine which is more important.
I wanted to discuss it with the crew, but this was all in a matter of seconds. I remember holding that lever for a fraction of a second.
He hopes this move will help his plane avoid catastrophe.
The effect was immediate.
Now Burkill makes the announcement every pilot dreads.
Mayday! Mayday! Speedbird! Speedbird!
It was hard, very hard. I remember the couple of impacts and the noise.
Good God!
The landing was hard. Just a huge bang. The noise, bits falling off the ceiling.
Then I also became a passenger because we were now in an uncontrolled aeroplane. We were sliding along the ground and I didn't know what we were going to hit next. And then we stopped. When we actually stopped, I was surprised that I was still there. And then I looked around the flight deck and I was more surprised to see that all three of us were unscarred.
Everybody stay seated with your seatbelts fastened!
And I quickly became the captain again.
The crew switches off the fuel,
APU fire switch.
hydraulic and electrical systems.
Control switches. Come. Checklist complete.
I then had to look after my survivors.
The air stewardess then took control completely. And as she opened the door, I smelt the fuel.
We should hurry.
And realized that we need to get off this aircraft.
The big danger now is fire. Having survived the landing, passengers could be killed if flames sweep through the jet.
Jump! Jump!
I left all my luggage and just got myself down the slide.
Jump!
Let's get out of here.
I went through the galley and checked the right-hand aisle, and I was surprised to see nobody there.
Despite Burkill's fears, there are no casualties. Investigators have some early hunches about what caused the engines to fail. They also have plenty of clues, but a key piece of evidence is already missing.
Heathrow's emergency planning swung into action.
The crash of British Airways Flight 38 dominates the news. It's the most serious accident at Heathrow in 30 years. More significantly, the 777 is one of the world's most modern and reliable jets. The accident unsettles the airline industry. Investigators think they have the smoking gun. But they still can't prove how a small bit of ice could bring down a $200 million plane. They continue analyzing thousands of comparative flights to see what made Flight 38 unique. But after 7 months, they still can't crack the case.
From 35,000 Rolls-Royce powered flights, it was less than 1% that had the same features as the accident flight.
Then, on November the 26th, 2008, more than 10 months after the crash, the importance of finding an answer is underscored when the elusive culprit strikes again. Another 777 runs into trouble 39,000 feet above the United States, when one of its engines simply stops working.
Fortunately, in that case, the engine recovered and the aircraft landed safely at Atlanta.
Even though it didn't result in an accident, it reinforces concerns that there's a potentially dangerous flaw on every 777 around the world. The voyage from Beijing involved a gradual climb, a steady cruise, and a gradual descent. The fuel temperatures fell and rose accordingly, causing ice to accumulate in the fuel lines. That ice posed no danger unless it was released. Now investigators study the fuel flow and find that it was kept steady for most of the flight. The autopilot maintained constant speed and low power for hours, never demanding an abrupt increase in engine power until just before they reached the runway.
The approach into Heathrow was quite a turbulent approach, and the engines were demanding various levels of thrust power.
It's not me, that's the auto throttles doing their thing.
And there were 4 changes in fuel flow, one of which was a very high fuel flow of around about 12 to 13,000 pounds per hour demanded.
A closer review of the American Delta flight reveals that its engine rolled back under the same circumstances, a sudden demand for power after a long period of consistent speed. Investigators are now set to duplicate these precise conditions. Investigators have finally found the Achilles heel hidden deep inside the 777. The tubes that bring the fuel through the FOHE jut out just above the container of hot oil. It's just a few millimeters, but was enough to prevent the ice from coming in contact with the hot surface below and melting. The plane flew over Russia. Water in the fuel turned to ice. At -20, it began to build up along the inside of the pipes. The steady speed of the aircraft ensured this accumulation was never interrupted. Then, as the plane approached Heathrow, turbulence resulted in the first demand for power since much earlier in the flight, and things cascaded into a serious problem. The gushing fuel washed the ice through the fuel system until it built up against the face of the FOHE, with disastrous results.
Pete, I can't get power on the engines. It's not giving me power.
Facing a threat no one knew existed,
Mayday! Speedbird!
the pilots didn't have a chance to solve the problem. But why had the American Delta crew been able to clear the blockage, while the British Airways flight ended in near catastrophe? It's discovered that after just a few seconds of reducing engine power to idle, the blockage in the FOHE clears. But this maneuver was not available to the British Airways pilots because they were so close to the ground. Soon after the Seattle tests, Rolls-Royce redesigned the fuel oil heat exchanger. Other aircraft manufacturers are ordered to ensure that their systems aren't vulnerable to the same problem.
Crew have been presented with an unprecedented failure, and they did the best they could in the time that they had available.
The crew did as good a job as they could, and since they really only had about 30 seconds to think about what they were going to do about this, they couldn't have done any better than they did.
The ice that brought down one of the world's most sophisticated airplanes was gone by the time investigators showed up.
Weird thing about this investigation was that the culprit had fled the scene.
The inquiry into what happened consumed thousands of hours of manpower and cost millions of dollars.